Hello everyone, I am Sarthak. Today's video is dedicated to those players who have just started their journey in chess, who are very new to the game and who don't know much about theory, but still they want to play the game and they are very confused which move is the right way to go for, what is the logic behind a move, and I cannot understand too much theory. So what should I do? So we'll try to see how can you play chess without knowing much theory. So what I'll be doing in today's session is I'll try to play with computer level 1, 2, 3, 4 in Lichess, and I will try to demonstrate that even if we don't know much theory or no theory at all, how can we still play chess? So before we begin, we have to know a few things. Like suppose what I'll use one single concept throughout the session is control of center. Every decision that I'll be making in the opening while developing my pieces, I'll focus on how can I develop my pieces towards center. Now, it's said many times that, why should you develop in the center? What's the main logic behind it? So the logic is pretty simple. Suppose if you put a piece, say a knight in the corner, and if you put a knight in the center, and if you compare that the h1 knight has only two squares to move, but if you compare with the e4 knight, the e4 knight will be having 8 possible squares to move. So that's the main reason why you should develop towards center, because you have more options, you control the board, you control the game, because your pieces can be flexible to move here and there. So let's start with level 1. If I have to make moves, I have to decide, or probably I'll be judging my decisions whether or not I'm controlling center. So suppose if I make this move, I don't particularly like this move because for a very simple reason, I'm not controlling the center at all. I can play this move, pawn to d4, because it controls the center and the pawn also sits on one of the center squares. I don't like the move 1h4 because again, I'm not controlling the center at all. So in today's session, I'll try to demonstrate two basic concepts. How do you control center? And how do you make your decisions based on center control? Number two, piece behavior. Like one particular piece likes to, sit on a particular square, sit on a particular file, sit on a particular diagonal. And when the time comes, I'll demonstrate how do you deal with that. So let's start with the pawn move. I'll go pawn d4. Computer played pawn d5, which is totally making sense because they're trying to control towards, they're trying to put a pawn in the center and they're controlling e4. Now, I want to make you guys understand that what should be the developing sequence. So first of all, you should develop pawn, at least one pawn in the center. Then you should bring out the minor pieces. What are minor pieces? Knights and bishops together are called as minor pieces. And again, that too towards center. After you have developed the pawn in the center, minor pieces in the center, then you should try to castle with your king. Then you should try, after you have castled with your king, you should try to move your queen up. But it's not recommended to move the queen up way too forward because you don't want to attack the opponent unless you have developed. So remember my words, develop first, attack later. So first of all, I'll develop my pawn in the center. After that, I'll be putting my minor pieces towards center. Then I'll castle with my king. After that, I'll put my queen somewhere safe to say probably on the second rank or on the third rank, depending on the situation. And then I'll try to bring my rooks towards center. So that is my step-by-step process to develop pieces. Okay, so I'll try to bring the knight out. And the question comes, if I go one step back, why only f3? Because for a very simple reason, if I go h3, I'm not controlling any of the center squares. But if I go f3, suddenly I start controlling two center squares. So it feels right that you should go towards center. Black plays pawn f6. The idea behind f6 is that you should not play f6 because it's a bad move. You want to castle towards this side and it takes away the square for the knight. I'll try to develop my pieces. Now I want to bring my bishop out. To move the bishop out somewhere towards center, the pawn has to move. So I cannot move the pawn 2 steps forward because this guy will take me. If I put the pawn on e3, suddenly I realize that all these pawns will be on dark squares, so my bishop won't be able to come out. So first of all, I'll move the bishop out. Now I have to again choose what's the correct square. I'll make my decision based on center. I won't go to h6 because it's a blunder. I won't go to g5 either because pawn takes. The next square is f4. So I'll make bishop to f4 as a move. And they're going for g5. Now, I have seen many beginner players, they're having their pre-planned setups in mind. Like, okay, I have put a pawn in the center. I have developed my knight and bishop out. Now it's time for the pawn. I don't even bother what my opponent is playing. It happens so many times. I've seen so many players doing this thing. So what you have to understand that chess is a two-player game. Okay, so it should not be only about you that whatever you have decided should go right. It should go right, but at the same time, you have to also appreciate what your opponent is trying to do. So my opponent is trying to put a pawn on g5. The reason is very simple. They're trying to take my bishop. So I don't want to give my bishop. I will have to go back. I'll have to decide what's the correct square. So I have a couple of options to choose from. If I go c7, it's bad because it will be taken. Same goes for d6 and e5. I can go to e3, makes sense. But again, remember, I want to develop this bishop out. To bring this bishop out, I have to move pawn forward. But imagine if I put the bishop over here, this pawn cannot go forward. So e3 is neglected. I can go to d2. But again, after d2, the moment I push the pawn forward, my bishop will be blocked. So suppose if I just show the variation, suppose if I go bishop here, they play a random move, and I go here, suddenly my bishop is kind of locked inside my own camp. If I go to bishop c1, it's like I'm preparing for the next round. So the only logical choice comes to mind is go g3. Again, I'm having my plan that I can go pawn e3 and bring my bishop out, but I have to also appreciate what my opponent is doing at the same time. So opponent has pushed a pawn and trying to attack the knight. Again, I have to choose where should I go. Remember, my decisions will always be based on control of center. If I go h4, I'm not controlling the center at all. And also there's a saying in chess that goes by knights on the rim are very dim. I mean, I don't want to go towards corner. I'll make my decision towards center. So I cannot go to e5 because obviously I'll lose my knight. I can go to d2. So I'll go d2. Now my opponent has played pawn to e5. Now, it is a general thing to understand in chess that if you can see this particular line where my mouse is, this is called as the midline margin or the border, because below the line, it is white scamp, above the line, it is black scamp. Now, suppose when we were having earlier one pawn from each side, things were going nicely, pretty easy, pretty calm, nothing much was happening. All of a sudden, when black has put two pawns in the center and we only have one, now something is going on. So you have to again try to understand what exactly is going on. So they're trying to take my pawn. Now, we have to decide what should we do. Should we support my pawn with pawn e3? Or is it nice to take it? Now, by general theme, by general rule, I can say that whenever two pawns are there in the center, we can take one of them. Okay, it reduces the effect of attack. So if I take, they will take, and suddenly the bishop can take, and we are also hitting the rook. So it looks like I'm attacking the pawn two times. Black is only protecting one time. So I'll just take it. If they take, I'll take. They did not take. So I am already +1. And this number is very important for me. I'll tell you later on why it's so important. Again, I can see that this is a pawn, which can again take one more. So I'll take f6. They still did not take me. So now I don't want to bother too much about this pawn. I have to see that they have played bishop to b4 and trying to put some pressure. Now, whenever someone tries to come in your camp, you have to understand two things. What is the idea behind that move? Second thing, is this particular move right now creating any threats? So I can see, okay, the bishop is putting some pressure on the knight, but it is already protected many times. Okay, so I don't want to kind of directly go and attack this guy. I can go and attack this bishop. The bishop can go back somewhere. It's fine. But remember, if there is no real threat, I will focus on my own development because I have to castle with my king. So I'll put pawn one step, then bishop out, then castle. Now they are going pawn h5. Again, it's kind of an open question for you guys. Can I just go for bishop to d3, or should I try to see that, okay, what is this h5 move trying to do? So you can pause the video here. You can take 5 seconds or maybe a minute to decide and then play the video. I'll just move along and I'll say that, okay, h5 is played with the intention of playing pawn h4 and trying to hit my bishop. So my question is that, do I have a square for the bishop to be moved? So of course, yes, I can go to f4. So I'll not worry too much about this threat. I'll just go and complete my development. They are playing knight to h6, which is a nice developing move. They can also take the pawn, by the way, but level 1 is not doing that. Now, to players who are already having decent experience in playing chess, very quickly they'll find a way to win a pawn here after bishop g6 check and take h5. But specifically, I'm making this video for those players who have not played much chess, who are not having good experience in the game and trying to just learn the starting process of how do you play. So for that reason, I'll not play this move, bishop g6 check. Although you have to keep in mind that when you will go along at higher levels, you have to keep an eye on open checks and open threats that you can also create. What I will do is I can just continue my development and I'll just castle. Knight goes to f7. Now one piece is left to develop, which is this knight. Now I can develop the knight to c3. It's completely fine. However, you have to keep an eye on one important theme in chess, which is called as structure of pawns. Remember at the start of the video, I mentioned how every piece likes to behave. So let's talk about pawns. In chess, there are a couple of structures that exist about around pawns. A pawn in general likes to protect another pawn, and they want to go in the opponent's camp together. They don't want to be all isolated. So suppose if I compare the green group with the red one, I'll say the red one is much happier as compared to the green group, because the green group is having two isolated pawns. The red group, these ones are having pawns connected. Okay. Now, again, if I compare between the red one and the green group, I'll say green group is very happy because they can march forward and protect each other. But the red ones can never protect each other because they are isolated. Going back to this position, if I go knight to c3 and if bishop takes, I will have to recapture and I'll be having isolated pawns, double isolated pawns on the c file. So what is the right way to do to deal with this? I mean, you can simply play pawn like knight to c3, which is fine, not so bad, but you have to also learn new things when you play chess. So I will kick the bishop first. I can kick it like this, or I can kick it like that. Once I kick it by a3, I'll have to make sure that the bishop moves somewhere. Then I'll be happy to develop my knight to c3. Let's go pawn a3. Now the bishop is moved, and now no one is attacking the c3 square, so knight to c3. They have developed knight to c6. And now, finally, you have completed the development of minor pieces. You have also castled. And now I see that my opponent has not castled. So this is very important, guys, to understand that when you have completed the development and when the opponent has not even castled with the king, I should not focus on, okay, let's bring the queen out, let's bring the rook here somewhere, probably here or something. No, I want to just think, how can I start putting pressure on the king? So I have developed my pieces and I've developed them enough. So it's now time to launch some pressure on the opponent's king. Opponent king is sitting on the e file, which is half open. So I want to completely open the file so that I can start attacking the king. Now, I want to play the rook here. Coming to the rooks, just like pawns, rook have their own behavior. Rooks like to sit on open files. So suppose if I have a couple of options to choose from, and if I just compare the rooks, now I will have to understand what are the rooks that are the happiest ones. So I'll say a rook is the happiest one because it's sitting on an open file. D is the happiest one, and H is the happiest one. So A, D, H are the happiest rooks because they are sitting on the open files. After that, there is something in chess called as closed file. Closed file means if you are having two different color pawns on a file, this is completely closed. So I'll say E rook is not so happy because it's sitting on a closed file. For the same reason, I'll say G rook is not so happy because it's sitting on a closed file. Now there's something in between an open file and closed file. It's called as half open files or semi-open files. Semi-open file means only one single color pawn should be there. So this is a semi-open file. And okay, this is a semi-open file and this is a semi-open file. Now you have to understand, not all three rooks are equally happy. I will say C rook is the happiest. After that, F rook is the happy one and B rook is not so happy. The reason is very simple because the C rook is having more space to move as compared to the F rook, and then later on as compared to the B rook. B rook has nowhere to move as of now. But suppose if the pawn started to go forward, the B rook will start becoming happier. All right. So I'll move the rook on the E file, and right now it's not so happy. So how do you make it happy? So the idea is to push the pawn and open up the file. So let's do this. Pawn goes to A5, and now, as the idea suggests, you open up the file. Now they are not taking you. So I want to open up the E file. The pawn is the one causing trouble. So I'll just take the pawn. And the rook is now suddenly happiest. So black has played queen to D6. Now we have to start moving these pieces away. You know, like you have to attack the king. So you don't want the knight to be there. How do I attack the knight? So that's a question. And we have to figure that out. So first of all, there are many ways to do that. You can play king F1, then play pawn F4. You can take it once, then knight take it, and then you can again attack it like this. There are many, many ways, okay? But again, I'm assuming that we have to follow basic steps. So what are the basic steps? I'm attacking the knight 2 times. So these pieces are called as attackers. They're defending the knight 2 times by the queen and knight. So these pieces are called as defenders. If I want to attack the knight, I want to reduce their defenders. It means I have to start attacking the defenders of black. So what are the defenders? The queen and the knight. So what I can think of, that I can put the knight on b5 and that will attack the queen. So let's do this. And there goes the material. Okay, and now we are +9. Now guys, in chess, there's something that we should know, that one queen has 9 points, one rook has 5 points, bishops and knights are having 3 points, although at the later stages you will realize it's not always true, but as of now we can just consider to be as a standard that bishop and knights have 3 points each. One pawn has 1 point. There is a rule in chess. I mean, it's not a rule, but I consider it as to be a rule just for our sake of better understanding of the game. Rule of +2. Like if you're having 2 points or more, like in this case, we are having 9 points. So Lichess is already helping us in realizing that we are having more than 2 points. So if we are having 2 points or more, we can start following a rule which is called as exchange equal value pieces. The more you will exchange, the more you will go towards the end game and the stronger your position will become. So how do I exchange equal value pieces? So I can see that, you know what, I can take, because as I said before, bishop and knight are of equal points. So that's one capture. And they're capturing my pawn, which is a mistake because always recapture. So I'll recapture with the king. And they played knight to g5. Now, you have to be very careful in your thought process. You have to also see what were your previous plans and what were you expecting black to do according to your plan. And if black is not doing the same thing according to your plan, you have to understand that, okay, we need to see why black has not done that. So my plan was, let's go back, that I will take the knight, and I was expecting black to take me back either by the knight or by the pawn. I was expecting black to do that. Black did not do that. So it's called as something as a surprise. It came to us as a surprise because I was expecting something to happen, but that did not happen. So let's find out whether it's a surprise or it's a shock. So if it is a shock, then it's kind of bad for us. If it is a surprise, it's good for us. Now, black just moved the knight over here and it did not recapture. So what I should do is I should try to save my bishop. And again, you can see earlier we were +9, now we are close to +14. Now what I would do is I can take the pawn, which is a free pawn, or I can just think of, you know what, I want to exchange equal value pieces. So I can exchange equal value pieces. Whatever decision we are making is kind of fine. So if you're going for bishop f4, it's good. If you're going for bishop d6, it's good because a free pawn is always a free pawn. So I'll play bishop d6. Knight to h3. Again, what we were expecting the opponent to do, we were expecting the opponent to save the rook because we were obviously attacking the rook, which is a bigger piece than the bishop. So I was expecting black to just go rook here to d8. Black did not do that. So again, it's a surprise for us. So again, I have to think, I have to wait here and I have to see whether it's a surprise or it's a shock. Knight h3 is played with the idea to give a check, but we can realize very quickly that the knight is hanging and I can just take it. Now, obviously, it's just level 1, so it's making these bad moves. But I'll show you how do you apply same thought process, same principle, same ideas against level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, even with level 6. So let's go and see how can we win more points. We are already +17. I can realize my bishop was having a previous plan. As I said before, always remember previous plans. So I can take the rook, which I will. Again, it came to me as a surprise because of what I was expecting them to take me back. They did not do that. Instead, they just moved the bishop here. And I realized, you know what, I can again take it. Again, they have moved the rook. As I said before, I was expecting black to recapture my bishop. It did not do that. So I'll have to save my bishop. So I'll come back 1 step or 2 step or here or here. Wherever you're choosing, it's completely fine. Okay. Now, finally, you will realize just by, the visual, getting the visual impression from the board that you are having so many pieces and black is having nothing left on the board. So now it means that, you know what? Now I can go for the king hunt. Now I can start hunting down the black's king. And I can bring my big guys. Now it's time to pull out the big guns. So I'll bring my rook, I'll bring my queen where the king is. So one way to do that is I can play rook to g1 and it will be a check. Second way to do that is I can play queen h5. Third way to do that is play bishop e6. Many ways to do that. So go with the forcing ideas, which is find checks. Again, if you are focusing till now, you can find queen h5 to be a checkmate. That's how it's played with level 1. So now we are playing against level 2 computer. And the idea is still the same. You have to develop towards center. You have to bring out minor pieces. Don't rush too much about learning theory at start. Just see what are the objective realities of the board. So let's play. Okay, I guess previously I went pawn to d4. This time I'll play pawn to e4. They have played pawn e5 because they want to control center. Now I want to bring my pieces, minor pieces, remember. Knight has three options. I will choose f3 because it controls two squares in the center. e2 controls only one in the center. Also, if I play knight e2, my bishop is blocked. So I go knight f3. They're going knight to f6. Now here, it is in theory, it's called as a Petrov defense, but okay, fine. We don't want to go in the theoretical aspects of the game. We currently, we don't want to learn any theory. So here, traditionally, I can just take the pawn. But this is what I'm saying. If you're not aware of theory, you just relax. And you don't want to go for these lines that, okay, if this takes, okay, what happens next? I don't know. So you don't want to go in the territory in which you are not aware of, right? So you have to just focus on normal chess. You have to develop. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to attack my pawn. How can I bring out a minor piece and protect my pawn? Now, here is where I have seen many people doing a move like bishop to d3, which makes sense that you want to develop a minor piece to protect a pawn. But remember, again, as I said before, that you have to understand behavior of pieces. Like rooks like open files, bishops like open diagonals. So if you put a bishop to d3 like this, first of all, let me just make the move. First of all, the bishop is not having open diagonal, so it's not so happy anymore. Second of all, you block the pawn movement. And because of this pawn movement, because of the restriction of the pawn movement, I cannot bring this bishop out somewhere. So you have to find a different minor piece that can do the same job, which is the knight. So I can bring out the knight on c3 and protect it. They have also protected the pawn. Now it's time for the bishop because I want to castle, as I said before. So bishop can go to c4. It's controlling the center square. Bishop to c5. They're trying to just do some copycat theory. I don't know. So now it's time for castles. I'll just castle here. They will castle probably. And they're not doing castle. So again, this is the moment you have to stop. Because just in the video, just by recording the video, I was saying that I was expecting black that they will castle. They did not do that. So as a chess player, you have to stop here. You have to not play any further moves. You have to stop here to understand, okay, what's going on here? So knight has moved to a5 in order to attack my bishop. But the next question I want to ask myself is, what was the knight doing here? You will realize that it was protecting e5 pawn. Now it's not doing that. It is instead attacking my bishop. So one thing what I can do is I can just come back and save my bishop. That's fine. But I realize that, you know what, there's a way that I can protect my bishop and also win the pawn, which is knight to e5, because this knight has moved and it's not defending the pawn. So knight e5 goes, takes the pawn, protects the bishop. So I'll go knight e5. It takes, as I was expecting black to take, and I'll take back. Queen to e7. Again, as I said before, I was expecting black to do castling. Black is not doing that, okay? Also, you will realize black has lost the control of center because always put a pawn in the center. So because black is not having a pawn in the center, I can see that, okay, I can put one more pawn in the center, which is pawn to d4. Remember, if there was a pawn on e5, it controls d4 square. That is the reason I cannot put another pawn on d4. But I can do that right now. At the start of the video, I said that I will be basing my discussions. I'll be, I'll be making my decisions based on center control, whether or not my pieces are controlling center. This is one thing that you have to understand from the very beginning level of chess. Okay, so I'll play pawn to d4. They go back, and now I realize that I have almost completed my development, but the bishop is still not moved. So where can I go towards center? So I'll realize, okay, fine, I can go to bishop to f4. However, in this case, bishop g5 is the right way to go, but fine. We don't want to go in all discussion, we know that controlling center is what we want. All right. So I'm expecting black to do castling, but black is not doing that for some reason. So again, as I said in the previous game with level 1, if black is not doing castling soon, you have to start attacking the king. You have to start putting pressure on the e file. So how can I start being aggressive on the black's king? It means I have to try to open up the e file. Now you have to figure out what's the way to open up the e file. So you need to remove this pawn. You have to remove this guy. So what I would do is I just push it. Knight goes back. And how can I further the game here? So how can I still not make black castle? Now for beginners, what they can do here is just play rook to e1, which is completely fine. Absolutely fine way to develop. If you right now compare your pieces, you're having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces that are developed automatically. Black has 1, 2. The knight is not even developed yet because it's in the corner. Black has 2 pieces developed and you are already having 5. Why? Because for a very simple reason, we just focused on center control and we just followed all the steps. Put a pawn in the center, bring minor pieces towards center, castle with the king, then try to bring queen out, bring rooks in the center like that. Now here, I can bring the rook on e1. However, I want to point out there are better moves than rook e1. But let's again, I'm repeating my same point here. It is not to find best moves. It is just about, this video is just about to find normal moves that are sensible enough to play chess. Rook e1. Pawn g5. Again, so it's something, but if you are there till now in the video, you should understand that it's something about expectation and surprise. So I was expecting black to castle. Black is not doing that. Instead, black is starting to open up the G file and attack my bishop. So obviously I have to save it back. So I'll come back. Again, I was expecting black to do castle. Black is not doing that. It's trying to attack my knight. And remember, I said that we have to make this rook happy. I have to literally remove this pawn. So I can remove this pawn if I can push this pawn here. And if they take, I will take. And suddenly the rook starts becoming happy. How do I do that? I'll push it. They're moving the queen somewhere. And remember, we want to open up the file. How do I do that again? Push it forward. They have moved king to f8, which is kind of a fine move. Now, it is time to understand that, okay, the rook is fine. It's happy. But this rook is not involved yet in the game, okay? And we are just +1. Remember, rule of +2 only starts getting applied when you are +2, of course. So right now, we are not interested in exchange of pieces or something. We have to just try to see how can we start launching attack on the king. So I have to bring my queen out somewhere. I can bring the queen out to, again, keeping in mind that I want to control center. I can go queen d2. I can go queen e2. I can go d5, I can go d3, I can go f3, I can go g4, I can go, there are many ways to do this, okay? So I'll just make one move, any random move, not choosing again what is best, what is not best, something like that. They're going king g8, they're trying to do some manual castle. Let's bring our final piece in the game. And they have played king g7, which is fine. Now, if just because of the d6 pawn, this pawn cannot move anywhere. And just because of that, this bishop is kind of stuck. And because of this bishop, this rook is stuck. So it's like chain of events happening. All right, so let's go forward. Now we have completed the development. We have completed everything that we want, okay? So now we need a plan in the middle game. And this is where many players get stuck. What should be the right thing to do, okay? So I can totally understand because I can relate to that at some level because I have been there, okay? So it gets slightly hard to make a plan for starters. So what is the right thing to do? Okay, so when you are in the middle game, you have to focus on 4 principles. The 4 principles are king safety, pawn structures, choose side, which side you have to attack, and find tactics. But again, this is not a class for theory. So let's forget about all those principles. What I want you to understand is that once you have developed here, you want to slightly try to march in the opponent's camp. You want to now try to cross the midline margin, which we have already done with the pawns. So we now have to figure out how can we move our pieces somewhere safe and it also attacks something of the opponent. Okay, that can be anything. That can be a pawn takes pawn, which is a fine move. That also can be knight to d5 because it can put double pressure on the pawn. So that's how you kind of see, okay, we are going move by move. We are not here to calculate. Let's try to find out how do you find something to win a piece in 5-10 moves. No, nothing like that. We are just trying to go move by move. So we'll go knight to d5. Putting pressure here. I can also jump here to hit the queen. There are many, many ways to do that. And now we are getting a pawn for free, which is this. Because if bishop takes, I take the bishop. I can take like this. And as I said before, when you get +2, okay, they're capturing me for some reason. So I'll always recapture here. And now I'm +4. Okay, the rook is also hanging. Okay, so again, I was expecting them to take this guy. I was expecting them to move the rook, but they did not do that. So it's kind of surprise. So we'll just take it. Let's back up a bit. Here, if you are having a doubt that, why not pawn h4 to attack my bishop? So remember, it's completely fine. They can play pawn h4. But what was my original idea? My idea was to go knight c7. So if they're playing h4, it's again kind of surprising because already I'm attacking the rook. So I'll take the rook just to illustrate. Wait. Okay, so they can go h4, trying to attack the bishop, but I'm already attacking the rook here. So I'll take. They can take. I can take. They can take. I can take. They can take. I can take. And if you realize, already we are +5. Okay. Let's go back in the game. Okay, so they have played something like pawn b5, attacking my knight. I have to save the knight somewhere. So I'll move the knight towards center. Always remember, come towards center. So knight e3 looks fine. Rook to e8. Okay, so now they're trying to attack the pawn, which is making sense. We want to save this pawn somehow. How can we do that? So I can use my queen somewhere. So let's bring the queen here. Or you can also play knight to d5 because now the rook will start protecting it. So there are many ways to play this position. Pawn to a6 for some reason. I don't completely understand. But now I can see again that, it's still middle game going on. What should be the right plan? We are +9. So if you were there in the first part of the video, you should remember rule of +2. Start exchange of equal value pieces. The more you exchange, the better your position will become. So first of all, I'll try to attack something. So I'll go knight to c7 because this knight is in the corner. And now I'll use this knight to go somewhere. I don't know where. So probably I can go here because it attacks the bishop. I want to attack the bishop. And also I want to put some pressure on the queen. Remember, I'm +2, more than +2. So I want to exchange equal value pieces. Okay, fine. So now what was my expectation? My expectation was that they have to move the queen somewhere. But the reality is they did not even bother about that. So I'll just say thank you. And now we are +15 in the position and you can play rest of the game. How do you play rest of the game is something we have to now find. So now you have to open up the file and make everything happy. Okay, you have to just open up the game here. So I can go on to e6. They capture, we capture back. Why? Because rook is protecting it. So we are happy if they exchange. Okay. They did not exchange what we were expecting them to do that. So we'll take a free piece. And now there are many, many ways to play this position. If you want to make a queen, you can do that. If you want to do some checkmates, you can do that. Or as I said before, that right now it seems like that to get the visual impression of the game, we are having more pieces as compared to the opponent. We are having, whole control of the board. So now we have to pull out the big guns. So we'll go queen h6. We can try to go rook e8. There are many ways to finish things off. We can go bishop d4. You can even just take it. It becomes checkmate, but let's go this checkmate. All right. So we have done with level 2 till now. In the next part, we'll be dealing with level 3, 4. So you can see this video, try to implement these ideas with 1 and 2. And do let me know in the comments that are you still facing any difficulties in implementing the process, what I just mentioned here. Okay, so try it only with level 1 and 2. Let me know in the comments if you have anything else that you are still facing the issue. And when I'll be making the video on level 3 and 4, I will try to include those points. So that's it from my side. I hope you had a good time watching this video, because I did making it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.